Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're here today to review Y2K, the newest A24 film. Jaeden, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Little late on this. Blame my cold and the Buffalo Lake effect snow.
That's all right. It's all right. Was it worth the wait for you to get into the theater today and see Y2K?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I had a fun time with it. It's weird because it was one of those movies that like I was really looking forward to in the lead up to it. Like I remember seeing the trailers, like the first trailer earlier in the year. I think I actually saw it in the theater before something else, and I was like, "Oh, this looks great. This looks so up my alley." And then the reviews came out, and I was kind of talking to you because you had seen it a lot earlier than I did, and I was like a little nervous. But then as we talked about it more, I'm like, okay, I think this is a movie that even though it's probably not great, I think I'm going to like and have a lot of fun with. And I did.
Yeah, I think what I told you when we talked about it last night was like this movie is not critically good, but it's really fun. And I had a good time and I'm glad I went. And I think that's what matters the most when you go to a movie. So yeah, I mean we'll talk about it here, but first of all, this is a 90s time capsule. If you're looking,
Oh, absolutely.
if you were a child of the 90s and want a trip down memory lane, a bunch of nostalgia hitting you left and right. It's throughout the entire movie. You will enjoy this. Like there were a lot of people there in their like 40s, late 30s, up through like 50s that were really laughing during this movie. Just all the stuff that you remember. And that was really fun. The whole premise of this thing, Jaeden, is like, what if the Y2K bug really happened? Because for those of you who don't know or remember or weren't around for, there was like a panic leading up to January 1, 2000. And this idea that computers wouldn't be able to handle the year changing to 00, and that society as we knew it would collapse because everything was stored electronically by then. Banking, records, everything. So there was this massive panic. People were building bunkers and like, shelters and hoarding food and ammunition, whatnot.
How widespread was the panic, Tyler? Like how many people actually believed in this was going to happen? Was it like more or less than like the current like QAnon fringe?
Less. Like
Oh, wow.
I think.
Okay.
I mean, now there's just like, hey, the difference is YouTube wasn't a thing yet. And so you couldn't easily just get some jackass, quite honestly, telling you shit,
Fair enough.
on a video. People were still, for the most part, getting their news and information from newspapers and magazines and
and people's personal opinions are more private, right? It's not like you knew that every political opinion of every coworker and mutual friend and colleague of a colleague from Facebook or whatever.
Because Facebook wasn't around yet, and none of it was, right? Like, so AOL was the thing. Like that's how people can get it. And the movie opens with that, basically, with the dial-up and the whole "you've got mail" and all of that, and it's great. Love it. Did you ever use AOL, Jaeden, at any point?
No, I'm trying to think of like what like the oldest computer thing I remember is, because I remember like when like I'm young enough, or I guess old enough, I would say, like that I still remember like being trained how to use computers in school, right? And I remember going on YouTube for the first time. Like it's not like a thing that was like just I came out of the womb with an iPad. You know what I mean? I remember iPads releasing actually. So I'm kind of in that weird like zillennial space, I guess you'd say. But I remember Internet Explorer. I remember things being slow and deliberate to an extent.
Well, yeah,
no dial-up though.
This movie gets back to the time where it was dial-up, and you hear the sound, which if you know, you'll never forget. And back then it was one of those things where like if mom needed to make a phone call and picked up the phone, you got disconnected from the internet. It was over.
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot of those kind of horror stories because my mom had me pretty young, so she's just a little bit older than the main cast of this movie would be.
The video getting queued up and taking forever to like get to a point where you can see it clearly and play in like Bill Clinton videos and stuff. And then
You just got like the
of,
bars too, right? Where like the image loads like kind of down the monitor.
Then of course like the random like porn the kids got downloaded and all that stuff too, which will I'm sure hit on in a little bit. But yeah, I mean it's a trip down memory lane. And this movie is produced by Jonah Hill, directed by Kyle Mooney.
I didn't know that Jonah Hill was attached.
Yep. Directed by Kyle Mooney of Saturday Night Live fame. And this is his first directorial effort. And I think, like, for what he was going for, not bad.
No, I think it definitely does read as a first feature film, right? I think it has some growing pains and some kinks. But I am excited to see what he makes after this because I can see, like, the potential is there. He clearly has the comedic chops. And, like, I went into this thinking that it might kind of feel like a feature-length SNL digital short. And I don't think... I think it's a bit higher quality than that. I think the concept is a bit higher thought out. And there's, like, even more of a horror element to this movie than I was expecting.
You think so? Okay.
It's really gory.
That is true.
Which I wasn't expecting. And they do a really good job of setting up the characters and stuff so that when people happen, even little side characters, kind of dying in the background, like you feel something, right? You were like, oh, I'm going to miss this person because I like their performance a lot. And I think that worked really well. And I think like they do the coming of age stuff so well and like the tone and era setting so well in the beginning of the movie that I was honestly so just engrossed in the movie as a coming of age movie that I almost forgot about the horror element, right? So when the clock hits midnight and all the power goes out, I'm like, oh shit, here we are. Like this is the moment, right? I was kind of honestly just invested in watching these kids dance and be at this party and trying to get with their crushes and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we've got the story focuses on Eli, and for a while, Danny. Eli is our main character, played by Jaeden Martell, who played young Bill in
the It movies.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all grown up now. The ripe old age of 21, I think the actor is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, but yeah, he stars opposite Rachel Zegler, who plays Laura in the film. So Eli, of course, has a crush on Laura, and
very much the love interest of this movie, right?
Yeah, has never had the guts to ask her out, and Eli and Danny are like, we're gonna go to this massive New Year's Eve bash at Soccer Chris's house.
Soccer Chris, such a fun character, by the way. Just like typical douchey, like
they nailed douchey.
They got the frosted tips too. Yeah. The kind of guy that you don't see anymore. Thank God.
So they go there to that house. It's their last chance to kind of live out those like teenage like dreams of glory, right? Dreams of teenage glory. They're gonna do it. And they get there, and Danny kind of does. Danny, takes the dance floor and goes nuts and, becomes sort of the center of attention. And Eli just isn't. Eli's very, shy, introverted. And then he's crushed by seeing his girl making out with Soccer Chris. And the character's name, by the way, is billed as Soccer Chris. So they call him Soccer Chris. So then we proceed and we get some horror tropes fulfilled as soon as midnight hits. And then it turns into a mad dash to survive for their lives because all of the technology that exists in 1999 and 2000 turns on them and tries to kill them and enslave the human race.
Yeah, and I'm a sucker for like apocalypse movies in general, especially when they kind of show you like the fall of the world. And I think the movie does a really good job of like the way people are dying in the house party is absurd, right? Because they're getting killed by all these like contraptions of like all the household electronics are kind of compiling together, right? They're shooting CDs at people out of the, the giant stereo system. There's like the little sister's kind of ride around car ends up getting like has a flamethrower attached to it.
Yeah.
Like it's wild stuff, but I think they do a good enough job of setting up the characters, and even like just the side characters at this point, that like when people die, I kind of like, oh shit, like that I'm gonna miss that person, right? And I think they did a really good job of like showing all of the different kind of tropes of people you have, right? Where they talk about, there's one where they're like, everyone's at this party, and they kind of cut to all of the different cliques in their corners, and they all have like a different song that plays for a couple seconds to kind of give you their vibe. And it's really perfect, and it does a great job of establishing these different kind of cliches and caricatures. And I really like the group that we end up getting as our main group are people that really usually in high school, right, especially in this time, stay very separate because their interests are very different. Their worldviews
it's
are
funny
different.
how we landed with a group that's just like every other group in a teenage survival. You know, we get the group together that's like one from every clique.
Except for the Newsies. There's no theater kids, and there's none of like the. Oh, never mind. There is. I was there's none of like the elevated hip hop kids, but I forgot there's the one that's kind of his whole thing, right? Yeah. They're constantly battling between like the new like rock rap new metal hybrid stuff and this dude who's all about just like he's a spiritual lyrical individual, you know.
Yeah. True to form for horror movies, Jaeden, the first person to die is the one who got laid.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that.
So that, you know, we stayed with that, which I found funny. And the bed attacked him, threw him from the bed, and I think broke his back or something. I don't know, but
he ended up with a ceiling fan blade.
Like, oh, that's right, the ceiling fan. So the bed threw him up into the fan.
Yeah, because they had that crazy electronic bed with like I don't even know what it is, but it's like it was just like fold. The mattress could fold and kind of tilt in different ways.
And they do it very subtly. They kind of let us know that because Eli accidentally peeks into the room, and you can hear the guy
whirring.
Like, oh, we can do so many positions in this with it, and whirring, like moving the bed around, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, like once we move on, funny enough, Jaeden, Eli and Rachel are both in this group of survivors. And
really? No.
Yeah. So it turns into the story where, you know, the love is kindled and all of that, and it leads up to a point where the machines just so happen to be staging their headquarters at their high school.
Their high school, right?
And
which I feel like is kind of telegraphed, right? Because you see that they're adding this new
broadband.
They're doing is that what it was?
Yeah, high speed internet.
Nice. Okay, I knew they were implementing something. I just didn't know what exactly the leap was.
It was really smart to show that early in the movie.
For sure. And we haven't really jumped into we haven't done like a spoiler or non-spoiler section here, but I feel like it's one of those movies that I feel like you can't really spoil, because I think like the plot itself is pretty formulaic, expected, cliche, but I don't think that works to its detriment, right? This isn't really a plot heavy or plot focused movie. It's about characters, it's about making you laugh, and it's about a really great cameo that we will not spoil yet.
Yeah, we'll get there in a couple minutes. Yeah, they just have to battle their way to the high school to defeat the machines, because Laura, despite being the really cool girl, is secretly like a pro hacker. Which works out.
Which great. I thought was cool, right? That it's I think it's a nice layer to her character, because I think a lot of these movies, like like these kind of coming of age teen movies, I feel like the girl love interest is very much just like, she's a popular girl who's very pretty, and like her arc is just like other people around her realizing like, oh, I thought you were a selfish asshole, but it turns out like you do think and you do have interests. And I feel like they never really did that with her in this movie. I think she always had kind of interesting layers to her and parts of her personality that clashed, right? She was one of those people that she was in overlapping in several of those different cliques. And I thought that was fun. I did really like her character. I enjoy Rachel Zegler. I think she's just had a really good last couple years. And so I'm glad to see her in more stuff. And I think this was a good fit for her.
Yeah. So that's basically the plot. And if you had to guess the plot, you probably get pretty close. Like you said, Hayden, it's pretty formulaic. But that doesn't mean it's not worth seeing.
No, for sure. I agree.
Like, I think it's an interesting coming of age type story that does it a little bit differently in kind of a cool way. So I'm on board with that. And the 90s references were fantastic. And there was just a lot of like, I think my favorite part, this movie just didn't take itself seriously.
Yeah.
There
are a couple moments though where it does, right?
Yeah.
It does kind of like when you see kind of the world falling apart around you, there's some really good, like kind of cliche apocalypse tropes of like the two planes crashing into each other and a clearing on the mountain where you see the whole town is on fire, right? Like those moments are a little serious, but I think generally, rather, the movie has a very tongue-in-cheek tone. And even when they are doing the horror thing and they're killing people and it's gory, it's almost like a slapstick sort of violence. Like it's silly. The way people die is silly, you know?
It is.
For the most part.
It's bloody, but it is silly, and it's in my opinion, like the violence in this movie and the monsters were designed to be very like B-movie / straight to DVD, but I think that was intentional.
For sure, right? It feels very like kind of like Goosebumps or like the spookier stuff that Nickelodeon would put on in that era, right?
Yeah.
I really liked it. I really liked the design of the, I don't even know what you'd call it. I guess the amalgam, the amalgamation of all the different technology. And as it continues to grow and grow, you just see these piles of different machines all kind of together, and they look a little organic, right? Because they've got the wires and they're kind of,
and they have the one monitor screen with the red eye, right? And all that. But let's put a score on this thing and then move into some spoiler territory. So we liked it. Yeah. I know that this movie's getting hammered, and I'm going to take this moment to read my favorite audience member review on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
So this person was like 1 star. A really stupid movie with extremely ugly people in it. And so that made me laugh.
That last part is not fair or true, even necessarily.
Right. Like, yeah. It's just, it was so ridiculous. The comment made me laugh. I disagree on both counts though with our friend here. This movie's fun. It don't expect Oscar worthy shit. Anything like that, but you're gonna have a good time. And if you're just looking for something kind of lighthearted but with some horror elements and whatever, like you'll enjoy this. So
I think this will become a cult classic. I really do because it's got just a lot of fun, a lot of humor. It's part of the A24 horror camp, right? Which people love to kind of rank and compare against each other. And I think this is firmly in the more lighthearted camp of those. So I think it has value in that pool. But I also think that like because it's set around New Year's, because it's set around the holiday, I think I can see this becoming a movie that people kind of rewatch around that time of the year, especially when there's, major anniversaries for Y2K ending in 5 or 0.
Yeah. Which, by the way, next year. So.
Truth.
Well, actually, this year, right? Do you count it turning into 25 or into 26? Because we counted it turning into 0. So then we should count it turning into 25, yeah?
Oh, yeah. So I guess this would be 25 years of Y2K.
Yeah.
Yo, that's crazy to think about. Wow.
All right. But anyway, we gave it a 7. We liked it. It has its flaws, but it's a good time. So, okay, spoiler territory, everybody. If you haven't seen it and you want to and you don't want anything ruined, stop here.
Yeah.
Or mute us and leave it playing because we would love that.
Appreciate it.
Anyway, So
I want to get into characters first.
Me too. Okay, because
Okay.
I want to move. We're going to move fairly quickly through this part because I think we hit on a lot of the meat of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But
which, to be honest, there's not a ton of.
There's not.
Right. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. The characters. Hayden, go ahead. Are you going to hit on the big one first, or
I'll hit on the big one second because I think there's. I want to get the negatives out of the way. So I think there's two characters in this movie that are very self-indulgent, very over the top, very absurd, and very much feel like something out of the kind of SNL sketch-based comedy camp. I think one of those doesn't work really well. I think one of those works incredibly well. I think the one I'm a little weaker on is like Kyle Mooney's character. Like there's just the stoner,
the sage, like
right. The kind of but he, at the same time though, he's really not. And I think
but
he's not a sage. Right, but I think he kind of, if he had some genuine wisdom to impart on these kids, or he knew things, or he knew about like how computers work, I think he would have had kind of a role in like the quote unquote hero's journey, like the arc of this film. But I think it very much strikes me as just like a self-insert original character that it's just like this feels very much like something out of like mid 2010s SNL. Right. This kind of feels like a rejected sketch character. And I don't know. I kind of wish it either was, I just wish it was in the movie less. I think it kind of detracts from it. And I think the jokes aren't super effective.
He had one good moment in the movie, in my opinion. And it was his last one. But I could absolutely see an SNL skit in the video store with that character thinking he's like brilliant and thinking all the kids come to him for wisdom and everything, and it being only moderately funny.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it was a little much. It was a little just a little too much. But the final moment where he thinks he's going to have this great showdown straight from the movies with the machines, I did laugh at that because you knew what was coming.
Yeah, and I think even to a point he did too, right? I think he was trying to like buy the kids time and like sacrifice himself, like a very Obi-Wan kind of way, because he takes all the drugs.
He was also really high, so
right. He splits his stuff, his like his what is that thing called he's doing with the ball and the strings?
Oh yeah, I forget what it's called, but the sticks where 3 sticks and you're moving one back and forth with the other 2. Yeah,
right.
I forget what it's called.
So he kind of breaks that into like 2 staffs, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Ascending," which is like one of the funniest points of the movie because he just gets like quite literally ripped to shreds.
Yeah. With getting 0 shots in.
Oh yeah, I don't think he makes contact.
No, he doesn't. So yeah, that was fun. Now, go ahead and get to the other one, the one that I know we both want to talk about.
So they kind of set it up a couple times. They talk about a particular artist. They talk about his music. They play his band's music a lot. But they really went there. They really did it. And they have Fred Durst as himself. And they frame it like a MCU holy shit, like audience applause level cameo in the way they introduce it. And it's hilarious because they walk into the video store kind of after the apocalypse already started going down. So they're kind of looking there for answers. And this guy's in the background, this like shadowy figure. And they're like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I used to be somebody." And then he comes out and it's Fred Durst. But it's Fred Durst, as you remember him, iconic from the 90s, with the exception of his backwards red hat. And I love that like they give him like a superhero suit up moment with the red hat where he has to learn to have strength in himself and courage and confidence to become the Fred Durst that we all know and want him to be. And honest to God, this is like one of the best celebrity cameos I think in anything ever. Like every single time he was on screen, I was laughing out loud. They were so self-aware and tongue-in-cheek about it. They knew it was ridiculous that he was there. And so anytime they address him, it's never like, they never use pronouns. It's always like, oh, Fred Durst is in the other room with so-and-so. Like, Fred Durst, we need you to distract Kang, right? Like those kind of lines. And it's so good, especially because they give him this moment where he's trying to like hype up the crowd that's like about to be enslaved.
And it's a distraction, right?
And he's
like
to distract the robots, and he fucking bombs.
And they're all
like
booing.
Yeah, because all of like the parents kind of the town are like, dude, like shut up. Like someone at one point yells like, Fred Durst sucks. And it's just like, it's so funny. And I also love the fact that like they didn't try to do any like weird like de-aging or makeup on him. They're just like, we are gonna give you Fred Durst as he is now with the beard and goatee and the exact outfit. I feel like he's like a Fred Durst action figure in this movie, right? Like he's stereotypical proto like peak Fred Durst appearance.
This is awesome. I loved it.
It's so good.
It was so good, and man, like he nailed it. The writers nailed it. The way that the kids talked to him and interacted with him, from just calling him Fred Durst all the time and all that. Also this like weird, like the way they idolized, but we're also really disappointed in him. You know, like
it's funny because there's a mix, right? There's one character who she really loves his stuff. She's like the punk rock or the rap rock kind of person, right? She's got that aesthetic. Like she has the backwards red hat on. And she talks about, she's like, Limp saved my life. Like, Limp is who I am. Like, Limp Bizkit gave me every friend I've ever had. Like, this is what we bonded over. It's so funny. And then there's also the kid who's like the more kind of like into like the more, he's kind of more pretentious about his hip hop, right?
Yeah.
He likes things to be lyrical and have like experimental flows. Like, he's like, dude, your music sucks. Like, just straight up to his face several times. Like, kind of calls him a hack, essentially.
But then Fred Durst compliments his lyrics, and he's like slowly but surely melted away.
He warms up to him. And I love that character's death scene because I remember the quote, but I don't remember what it's riffing off of. I think it's like Lord of the Rings or something. Because it's like,
I think you're right.
Because he's like, I never thought I'd die.
Yes.
With a rocker
It is Lord of the Rings
beside me. And she's like, what about dying with a homie? And because the line is like, I never thought I'd fight with whatever.
I never thought I'd die fighting next to an elf. And it's like, how about next to a friend? That's So
so good.
It was great.
Were those released in the 90s? No, the Lord of the Rings movies? I thought they were more
2001 through 3. I mean, I think we're about to wrap this up, but ultimately, I think you can hear in us like, look, we know the movie isn't, Oscar worthy or whatever, but as we talk about it, we're just laughing, talking about the moments in the movie, and there's a place for that in theaters, and I think that I've been so won over by A24 in the last few years, like. Even the less, like, I don't even want to say the bad A24 stuff because I don't think that really exists, but
the stuff that's not prestige,
the stuff that would be lower on their power rankings is still pretty solid.
Yeah, and I think it rounds them out. I think they've had a really good year where they've had a mix of things, right? They've had, with this movie, they had a really kind of campy, fun, tongue-in-cheek horror movie. They had a couple pretty serious horror movies with Heretic and I Saw the TV Glow, and then they had like a political blockbuster with Civil War. So I think they've kind of gotten away from what they were typecast as, which is good.
And I love, studios, distributors like them, Spotlight, etc., that really take chances on
Neon.
Yeah,
for sure.
And don't just put out cookie cutter like blockbuster shit. Like, this movie gets made by a place like A24, right? So I'm glad we have that still, and I'm glad they're thriving. So we gave this thing overall. So we'll run through the categories real fast. Story, it's probably the weakest part of the movie.
Mhm.
But come on, you're not there for the story.
No, not that serious.
We gave it 6.5 or 6 out of 10. Sorry for story. Cast
Mhm.
6.5. It does have the ugliest people we've ever seen. I'm just kidding. That was a comment. No, the cast is fine. I think your call out on Mooney is really fair and probably true. I would agree. So look, sound, and feel 7.5. I love that part. I think they nailed the 90s vibe really well.
Absolutely.
If you like 90s stuff, by the way, go check out the posters for this and find the like boy bandish posters of the main characters like Jaeden Martell, and there's Fred Durst and Rachel Zegler.
The Fred Durst one is great.
Yeah.
I hope A24 is gonna sell the Fred Durst one because
I bet you can. I bet you can get it. I bet you
yeah.
get it. So, and then Intangibles, we gave it an 8. I just, this movie's fun. Like, yeah, I'm in. And we were talking off air. December 2024 has a lot of really serious shit, and it looks like it's going to be really good. But outside of Craven, a lot of really serious shit. But we're getting Brutalist, and we're getting Nosferatu, which is getting fantastic reviews.
For sure.
But it's more of a dark, it's not lighthearted in any way, shape, or form. Baby Girl might be a feel-good story depending on your point of view going in.
Oh God. But this is a silly fun time, and you need it. You need it to round out the year for sure.
One of these things is not like the others, and it's this, and I think that's in a good way though. So
for sure.
Hey, this movie only had a budget of $15 million. So I think chances of it doing, I think it will. I hope so.
I think it will do pretty well on the DVD and Blu-ray.
Well, you know where it's going to do well too is in the
Max.
The high school and college crowd date night, going to the movie theater on Friday or Saturdays. Like I think that's where it's going to do pretty well. So Intangibles, we did an 8, and then finally overall a 7 out of 10. Y2K is fun. Go see it. It's a good time. Our next movie review is going to be Craven. I have no idea what to expect.
A celebration of life for the Sony. What do they even call it? Sony's universe of Spider-Man
of shittiness. I don't know. Like,
oh, they're going out with a bang, dude.
Aaron Taylor Johnson's like, I'm going to make one more absolute
shit movie
stain of a movie before
a good actor.
Before it could become James Bond.
Yeah.
So,
but he got the 28 Years Later trailer today, which looks really good. So
it does. Dude, even if that looked like shit, I would be in. So.
Oh yeah, that's like an opening night. Minute one for sure, dude.
We're announcing now we will have a review of 28 Years Later when that hits, so.
Somewhere around June 20th.
Yeah.
So if you're still with us in 6 months, 7 months, thank you. And we'll look forward to it.
That probably means you subscribe to the channel, which you should do if you haven't yet, and like this video. Check out all the Indiana Jones stuff we have right now, which is a lot, and other movie reviews and all sorts of good stuff. We will be live for the Game Awards this Thursday to do a co-stream of that event. Plus, we'll be doing a watch along of WWE Saturday Night's main event on Saturday, so check that out as well. All right, thank you, everybody, and go watch Y2K. I keep wanting to say go watch A24. Do that too, but go watch Y2K. All right, thanks, everybody. Bye.
Take care, y'all. Bye.